Tonight, damning report. BC's energy regulator accused of turning a blind eye. Date set. An all candidates debate scheduled for Fort St. John. And oil and gas. It's quickly becoming a top election issue. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with a damning report about BC's energy regulator. Allegations are being made about how inspectors with the regulator are giving oil and gas wells in BC a pass despite leaking dangerous levels of gas. The report was released by the Narwhal and the Investigative Journalism Foundation. It says 17 inspectors in British Columbia are responsible for nearly 6,600 active oil and gas wells, pipelines, and other energy infrastructure, most of which are here in Northeast BC. The report goes on to say during a 6-year period ending in 2023, inspectors noted thousands of potential violations. Now, the investigation found some sites were given a pass despite notes indicating leaks of hydrogen and methane, often at levels considered highly explosive. And in some cases, the Narwhal reported, the records revealed inspectors noted potential violations, but the sites were still given a pass in the regulator's official records. In more than 1,000 instances, inspectors documented apparent environmental infractions such as emission leaks, fuel and chemical spills, yet the report says the sites were still marked as compliant. Some of the environmental infractions involve damage to wildlife, fish-bearing streams, and other waterways. The BC Energy Regulator is mostly funded by the oil and gas industry. The provincial agency is mandated to protect public safety and the environment from infractions by the energy industry. CJDC-TV News reached out to the energy regulator for comment, and they said in a statement, the BC Energy Regulator is confident in the process and systems it has in place to manage compliance within the energy industry to ensure the protection of the environment and public safety. And now to a retraction to a story that we aired last week. On Friday, we reported that a judge ordered Fort St. John veterinarian Justin Sewell to register as a sex offender after he pled guilty to sexual assault. Court services in Fort St. John reached out to CJDC-TV News today. They informed us that the information they gave us was incorrect. In fact, Sewell does not have to register as a sex offender at this point. Court services also saying a court hearing has in fact been scheduled to discuss that option in front of a judge. Sewell was sentenced to house arrest for 2 years less a day and still has to provide a DNA sample. The charges stem from an incident that occurred in Charlie Lake back in 2007. We apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. And as the federal election heads into its third week, an all-candidates meeting has been scheduled. The debate will be held on April the 15th in Fort St. John. It'll take place at the Lido Theatre on 100th Avenue, starting at 7 p.m. and going till 9 p.m. According to Elections Canada websites, 5 candidates are now registered to run in the riding of Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies. Candidates had until today at 2 p.m. to register with Elections Canada in order to run. And Elections Canada says registered voters should receive their information cards in the mail this week. But all Canadians who are 18 or older on Election Day are eligible to vote. It's already possible to cast a ballot at Elections Canada offices 7 days a week. There will be advanced polling dates starting on Friday, April the 18th through Monday, the 21st. Canadians officially head to the polls on April the 28th. Mark Carney stepped into his official role as Prime Minister once again on the campaign trail today. Carney meeting with BC's Premier to discuss new duties expected to hit Canada's softwood lumber industry. The U.S. is set to more than double duties on Canadian softwood lumber to nearly 35%. And that's before Donald Trump makes good on his threat to impose new tariffs on the sector. CTV's Abigail Beeman is on Vancouver Island with reaction to what would be an even bigger hit to BC's already beleaguered forest industry.
The U.S. is set to more than double duties on Canadian softwood lumber, and that's separate from any new tariffs Donald Trump may levy on the sector. But no details yet about what those specific steps may be. Countervailing and anti-dumping duties, as they're called, currently total 14.4%. On Friday, the U.S. Department of Commerce announced it plans to raise them to 34.45%. BC's Premier David Eby called them an attack on forestry workers who number 50,000 in the province. And it was top of mind for him when he met Mark Carney in Victoria. Carney also spoke with his finance minister and the governor of the Bank of Canada today about the market volatility and says he's confident they're on top of things. Speaking here on Vancouver Island, Carney said the world woke up to dramatic moves, and he said there may be tough days ahead with the U.S. driving itself into a recession. Abigail Beeman, CTV News.
And the Conservative leader was campaigning in our province for the fourth straight day. Pierre Poilievre was in northern BC today speaking about another major industry affecting the Peace region. As Jeremy Charon reports, oil and gas is quickly becoming a key election issue.
In northern British Columbia, a hot spot for Canada's energy sector, this oil refinery is today's backdrop for what is becoming a key issue in this election.
We need to move at the speed of business to bring our jobs home and become self-reliant.
Becoming self-reliant in the face of a trade war with Donald Trump's America, which has exposed Canada's vulnerabilities in the energy sector. The majority of Canada's natural gas and crude oil goes to the U.S.
Do you want your entire oil supply to be dependent on a permit that President Trump could revoke today and that we would have no recourse on? And I think the answer to that is becoming no. People are very nervous about the uncertainty.
Poilievre promises to approve 10 big energy projects and fast-track regulatory approvals.
The single most powerful thing we can do to break our dependence on the Americans and bring jobs and dollars home would be to rapidly expand our energy production and exports.
Liberal leader Mark Carney has put energy at the forefront too, also promising a more efficient approval process for big energy projects and pledging to build an energy corridor.
There is a big advantage to Canada to push that out, use our own oil, use the resources from that for other things, including protecting our environments, our social programs as well.
Liquefied natural gas is the focus of most new energy project considerations. Proponents call it a cleaner traditional energy source, but it still has significant environmental impacts, and this expert says it's not a quick fix.
We're really late to this game, and that means the profitability of these projects is questionable, especially if they're entering a market that's going to be very crowded by that time in 2030.
Now, Canada doesn't currently export LNG to any overseas markets. The first shipments are expected to leave a terminal in northern British Columbia later this year. Jeremy Charon, CTV News, Delta, British Columbia.
The chief counselor of BC First Nation is calling for the immediate removal of a Conservative candidate from the upcoming federal election. It comes after statements about the history of Canada's residential schools. Chris Roberts from the Wee-Way-Cum First Nation says Aaron Gunn should be removed as the candidate for the riding of North Island Powell River. Roberts says Gunn's previous public statements dismissing the experience of residential school survivors are deeply offensive. And Robert adds they are also incompatible with truth, accountability, and reconciliation. In videos and statements posted online back in 2020 and 2021, Gunn said the residential school system did not constitute genocide, and the schools are much maligned. Well, despite that, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is standing by his candidate, saying the reports are a case of misinformation. More mayhem on the markets around the world. Stocks plunging once again today in reaction to Donald Trump's recent tariffs, including the TSX, which took a significant hit. CTV's Mike Walker has the details.
From the opening bell, another volatile day on global markets amid the U.S. president's sweeping global tariffs. The roller coaster ride too much for some investors to stomach.
Try to avoid it. Don't want to see it. I think there's a lot more pain to come.
There's a ton of uncertainty, and that's the problem, right? Is that the market hates uncertainty? Don't know, right? It's pretty painful.
Global markets plunged for a third straight day after last week's two-day meltdown. At one point, the Japan and Taiwan markets briefly paused trading. Meanwhile, wild swings on the North American markets, the S&P 500 was briefly in bear territory. Markets like the TSX bounced back today, but are still down.
It's not fun going through it. It's a bit of a gut check, right? But ultimately it comes down to the companies that you own and what you're invested in.
Despite the turmoil in the markets, Trump has doubled down on his global tariffs and plans to meet with world leaders to negotiate new trade deals.
We have many countries that are coming to negotiate deals with us, and they're going to be fair deals, and in certain cases they're going to be paying substantial tariffs.
With the global trade war escalating,
what do you do?
Many worry about the impact on their personal investments, including retirement funds.
It still hurts. right? Luckily, I'm not retiring in the next 5 years.
Goldman Sachs warns the tariffs may have caused irreversible damage.
The most difficult part about this all is that, you know, this president was supposed to be a business-friendly president. So far, unfortunately, we're not seeing that, and the market's telling us that people have been caught off guard with such a steep decline.
As concern continues to mount over a looming recession.
We see recessions in the rearview mirror, but we already got one data point on jobs last week that showed us it's already happening. When businesses are uncertain, you will see that the first thing they do is freeze hiring, and then the second thing they do is lay off.
Experts say the next thing to watch out for is inflation.
And the central bank also saying today that an increased number of Canadians also think there is a higher chance of a recession in the next year. About 32% of companies surveyed by the Bank of Canada expect a recession over the next 12 months. A similar survey of Canadian consumers showed 66.5% of them also see a recession ahead. The surveys were conducted in February before last Wednesday's announcement by Donald Trump of tariffs on almost all of America's trading partners. The central bank also says around 40% of Canadian firms expect lower sales growth if tariffs are implemented. In Ottawa, the government's Privy Council office said today that China has been creating false narratives about Mark Carney. Officials say the fake information appeared on the Chinese social media platform WeChat. The messaging focused on Carney's experience and credentials in a bid to reach Chinese audiences, including those living here in Canada. Intelligence officials have linked the account in question to the Chinese Communist Party, but the Privy Council says the effort will not affect the course of the April 28th federal election. Canada will raise its concerns with the developer of WeChat. Ottawa police have identified a man facing multiple charges in connection with an hours-long lockdown in Parliament Hill's East Block over the weekend. Police say 31-year-old Tyler Hall-Worthington of Ottawa has been charged with 2 counts of breach of probation, public mischief, and uttering threats to cause property damage. A public alert went out around 2:45 Saturday afternoon. It warned people in the area to seek shelter, lock all doors, and hide. It came after a man allegedly isolated himself in a security screening area. Police say the man surrendered peacefully after hours of negotiation. So far, there's no word on a motive, but the police investigation is continuing. People across Canada and the United States took part in what's being called hands-off protests over the weekend.
I think it's really important that people around the world band together to stand opposed to Donald Trump.
The protests were to show resistance against U.S. President Donald Trump and his threats to annex Canada. And in the United States, protesters also rallied against the Trump administration's moves to start a trade war, slash the civil service, and pardon January 6th Capitol rioters. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back with weather, but as we head to break, here's a look at today's closing market numbers.